Good afternoon, everyone. Before I could even say anything to anyone here today, I think I owe you guys a huge apology and also just to thank you for still joining us, even though we've had everything messed up today. I know that on our program or the advert that was sent out, it said that we're starting at 4 o'clock. Meanwhile, we're starting at 5. I am so sorry for that. And thank you so much, guys, for still managing to join us even now. We'll just like to move forward by welcoming all of you to our 7th webinar. I can't believe that we've actually come this far and we only have one left. So today's one is centered around financing ocean protection, which will be presented by our one and only Professor Rashid Sumaila. I know that when we put out the ad, we said doctor, but I think that professor is even a higher title, so you deserve that much. So thank you so much, Doctor, for acknowledging and honoring our invite to you. And I know you're a very busy guy, but just for making time to be with us today. And I know for you it is 8 a.m., so having to wake up to a webinar of this kind, really, really appreciated. Well, my name is Dudu Ntombela, and I am an MPA/youth coordinator of Wild Oceans. And if you're wondering who Wild Oceans is, Wild Ocean is a marine program for Wild Trust, which is a non-profit organization working at a critical interface between environmental conservation and socio-economic advancement. It has various projects that allows it to fulfill its objectives. And one main project that I work for is the MPA expansion project, which aims at advancing marine protection in South Africa. And as I did mention that I am a youth coordinator, I work very closely with a youth-led organization, or should I say movement rather, which is called the Youth for MPA. So these guys are very enthusiastic and energetic youngsters that are advocating for more protection in our waters and putting people first, you know, and also highlighting the benefits of having the MPAs out there. So if you'd like to know more or even join the movement, you know, and be part of something bigger than yourself, I think that will be the right way of putting it. Please notice that we will share the link at the chat box. So if you'd like to just learn more or even join the movement, so please do click on that link and send us your details. Would actually like, the Youth for MPA will definitely like to have you on board. So today we have this amazing gentleman, which I would say I fully met him yesterday. And to be honest, I was a little bit scared to meet him because professor sounds like a very, very big word. But to my surprise, he's a very chilled, down-to-earth human being. And his name is Professor Rashid Sumaila, who is a professor at Canada Research and a Canada Research Chair, which is Tier 1, in Interdisciplinary Ocean and Fisheries Economics at the Institute for the Oceans and Fisheries and the School of Public Policy and Global Affairs, that is at the University of British Columbia. His research focuses on bioeconomics, marine ecosystem valuation, and the analysis of global issues such as fisheries, subsidies, marine protected areas, illegal fishing, climate change, marine plastic pollution, and oil spills. Professor Sumaila received his Ph.D. in economics from the University of Bergen, and his B.Sc. quantity surveying from the, I don't know if I'm going to say this right, but it's Ahmadu Bello University. Sumaila is widely published and cited. He won the 2017 Volvo Environment Prize, and I hope you do own the Volvo card if you actually won the prize, and was named a Fellow of the Royal Society of Canada in 2019. His interest in the environment started early in his life when his grandfather used to say, people should walk as if the ground feels the pain. Wow, this is sophisticated environmentalism. So I would like to hand over to you, sir. I know that we do have rules. I'm sure some of you already know the rules, guys. that you need to make sure that you are muted at all times. Use the chat box if you have anything that you'd like to relay to Professor. But otherwise, I think we're good to go. Professor, the floor is all yours.
Yeah, so thank you so much for the introduction, Dudu, and for the invitation. It's always a pleasure for me to get to talk, especially for ocean enthusiasts in the African continent. The mother continent is dear to me and to all of us. And it's good that you quoted my grandfather. At the time he told us this, I didn't really understand deeply much later. And I want to start there because really it shows, and I'm sure you all have this kind of stories where your dad, mom, grandma, granddad talk to you something of this sort, which actually alludes to the fact that conservation is not a foreign concept for the continent. It's not a Western thing like some want to say. No, we are conservationists. We live with the land. We live on the land. We relate to the water, to the coast, and so this is really something for us, not just somebody telling us what to do. So it's good. Thank you for starting there. And so what I plan to do is to start off very broadly and just say a few things why protect the ocean? Why do we want to do this? And then I quickly talk about the economics of ocean protection, because really, if you look at a lot of the reasons politicians and some of the public are resistant to this, the fishing sector, for example, is because they are thinking economics. And so it's very important for us to demonstrate the value of doing this so that we'll get more people to understand, and therefore we do this for our own good, not just because we care about biodiversity. So, and then I say a few words about financing. So financing is a broad theme in this respect. So let's get going. I know some of you know a lot about the ocean. Some of you don't know so much. So hopefully there will be something for everybody, Even if it's just a one line, I say it in a different way, that might be the value of you attending this, I hope. So the first thing I like to talk about is just to relate the ocean to land, because we live on land, we tend to give land more priority, but actually the ocean is the thing. It's 70% of the surface of the earth, and this has made some of us say, why call it planet Earth? You should call it planet ocean, because it is the thing, it's 70%. And this is crucial. It's so big, we cannot ignore it. We shouldn't ignore it for our own good. And you all would agree with me that if you were scoring 30% in your school exams from primary, high school, you wouldn't get to university, you didn't get to college, and you probably wouldn't be in this audience. So you cannot mess up 70% of anything that is important to you. So that's our ocean. And some of us think that because it's so large, we cannot mess it up. We cannot overfish. We cannot destroy the habitat. No, we can, because we are lots of people on Earth. How many billions? 7 billion plus. We have lots of technology. You have a fishing boat now that is so sophisticated, it can just zap up the fish that a whole country, subsistence people would take for years. We'll take it in half a day. So we have the technology to vacuum and take out. So we can mess up the ocean, which means we need to be careful. And some of us think that the ocean is too large, so we cannot manage it. Oh no, we can. I mean, people are amazing. I mean, we look small relative to the ocean individually, but collectively, we can actually manage our ocean. So that's the first few points I make on this slide. Now, this is my favorite model of the environment, more generally, not just the marine or the ocean. If you look at our relationship, people with the environment, you can boil this down to just two things. So we have our economy. What do? We go to the ocean, we go to the marine ecosystem, we go to the environment, and we take all the good stuff, all the things we like. We take the fish, we take the diamond, we take whatever, we get the services from the ocean. We take that into the economy. We do what we do with this. And you know, at the end of the day, what do? We produce waste. So the waste, where does it go? Goes back to the ocean, goes back to the environment. So good things come from the environment, the ocean, bad things go there. And the way we do this taking and this putting out of waste is really crucial. If we don't do it cleverly, we're going to destroy this very important home for all of us, which is the environment. So the whole of my work is actually about how to ensure that we don't overtake, how to ensure that we don't overpollute, and also how to ensure that what we take, we use it for the benefit of as many of us as possible. You want the benefits to be spread to everybody in the world, preferably, because that is how we keep people going and we keep the environment going. So this is my favorite model, and I think it's really fundamental. Of course, you expand this with the right equations, you explain what is the waste, is it CO2 or is it debris, is it plastic, and what are you taking and all that, and what do you do with the habitat? So there's a lot in this simple model, but just getting to the basics helps a lot to inform us on how best to manage this and protect it. Now, why do we want to protect the ocean? Is because the ocean is under threat. We are overdoing things. We are overfishing. We are pumping CO2. We are debris, plastic, what have you, oil spills. You look around and we are not relating to our ocean wisely. We're too short-term in our thinking. We're too grab. You know, we want to front load our benefit and push our costs back. And all of this is leading to a messed up ocean, which has consequences. So this is not just talking about the biodiversity, but this is also about people, about livelihood. So the graphs I'm showing on my left-hand side, this is a very nice summary of the fish we are taking and whether we are taking fish from systems that are overfished or not, different levels. Sometimes they are crushed. We take fish where we are currently taking less than 10% of the maximum we took just a few years back. We call that crush. And there are various degradations. If you look over time from 1950, we used to take a lot from fish that are only developing. We are not fishing as much as nature can provide. And then slowly with time, we are taking more and more overexploited, and even crash systems. So that's the trend we are going. We got to do something about this, or we end up with no ocean, no fish in the ocean. Can you imagine that? You have a dead ocean. And that is why you need protection. That is why we need protection. But these changes have human consequences. So up here on my right hand side on top, is a guy saying, is that all the shrimp I get? I mean, after all the work or after going to the market and waiting for fish to come, that's the only thing I can get to buy. And now on the bottom, and the bottom is what is becoming more and more common. We have environmental refugees. And I say this in Canada, in the US, and in Europe. You know, if you are in your coastal village, the fish is gone, no food to eat, things are tight. We are human beings. We don't just sit down and die. We move. So you have forced migration with all that it comes for the poor victims who have to move, and then those who say you can come into my country, right? And then so this is not good for anybody. This is one big reason why we need to protect our oceans so they can continue to support our livelihoods, you know. Now, marine protection and overfishing. So I want to make some quick relationship here. When I talk about overfishing, I think this picture captures it very nicely. Again, I love well-done pictures that summarize a lot of information. So this is a concept which was developed by Daniel Pauli, one of our colleagues here. He calls this fishing down the marine food web. And what does that mean? There are three processes there that are summarized. One, we are taking too much fish that nature can regenerate year in, year out. Then you are overfishing. It's like your bank account. If you have X amount of rand in your bank account, say you have 10,000 rand, and you have you are promised 5% interest rate. At the end of the year, you have 10,000 plus 5%. If you insist on taking 10% of the total, that's your capital plus your interest, you are depleting your capital. You have less than 1% year in, year out. And before you know, you go to the bank and they will call the police for you, right? You don't have money. So this is what we're doing. We're taking too much. The second thing we do is we usually, when we start fishing in a given water body, we take the big and valuable fish first. So you are truncating the food web. You are messing up the food web, which is a food web is structured by nature such that they work together as a whole. So if you take the big fish, you are truncating, and that leads to messing up and cascading effects on the system. You go to the next big one, and before you know, you are left with only mud or jellyfish in there. So that's the second thing we do. Take the big valuable first and keep going. The third thing we do, you see it on the x-axis. You see in the beginning, at the origin, the habitat is richer. You have all the corals and all the other sea mounts, depending on where you are, you have them there. You use bottom trawlers, you bang on the bottom, you kill the habitat. And again, without a habitat, the fish will not thrive because that's their home. And without a home, you become homeless, and you know the consequences of that. So this is one reason why we need to protect the ocean. Left to our own devices, we're going to take this system down. So for our own sake, let's protect part of our ocean portfolio, right? So that even if we mess up what we fish, we have a backup. This is also an investment concept. It's diversifying your portfolio. You don't fish everywhere just because you can. You put part of your portfolio where as a what did they say, rainy day account sort of. And so that is what protection can help you here. The other thing is marine protection and climate change. More and more evidence, we're building up evidence to show that if you have a healthy ocean teeming with life, fish stocks that are in good shape, when they are hit by shocks like climate change, they are more capable of withstanding that. So that is another reason why you need to protect part of the ocean portfolio, so that at least when you get hit by a shock, just think of the pandemic the world is facing now. We're talking about COVID-19. If you are healthy, if you don't have pre-existing conditions, say there are two people, one no pre-existing conditions, one has, and you are hit by this COVID, everything being equal, the one without pre-existing conditions will do better. Fish are like people, right? So if you have an ocean full of healthy population of fish stocks, climate change comes, they have the resilience to be able to at least mitigate some of the impact. And that is the theme here. And I have this this diagram that we put in the paper we published in Nature Climate Change. So this is the one direction. And that's what most of us scientists are talking about. You are looking at what, you're looking at if the ocean chemistry and physics are changing here, then it's going to affect the animals in the ocean and it will affect the fishery. But it's not only unidirectional, it's also the other way back. If you take too much fish from here, it's going to harm all these things and therefore make your ocean and fish stocks vulnerable to the impact of climate change, global change, deoxygenation, and ocean acidification, and warming sea surface temperature. So that is another thing to remember why we need marine protection, because again, it kind of helps you get away from overdoing things and therefore putting your fish populations in a good, better shape to face not only climate change, but other shocks that hit them. In fact, one of the first papers I did, I published in 1998 on marine protected areas. This was what I looked at. What happens if you have a fishing area and you protect part of it and then you are hit by shocks. And at the time, I wasn't even thinking of climate change. So whatever the shock is, and I did simulations and it showed that actually protection protects you from this shock, marine protection. And actually, the larger the protected area, the better protected you are. Actually, this was in 1992 when I was a much younger man. Okay, you remember that 1998? Yeah. So that's the thing. And this picture, I know you cannot read everything here, but I find it to be quite powerful. It summarizes how, you know, protecting the ocean and therefore reducing overfishing, habitat destruction, marine food web truncation, how all that actually is also climate action. Because the animals, as you know, the ocean absorbs a lot of the CO2 we pump out. It takes it in. And if you look at the economic value of that, which we did for the high seas, we compared the value we get from catching fish in the high seas versus the carbon sequestration value. And what we found was 1:10. The value of fish as sequester of carbon is 10 times the value of fish we catch and eat from the high seas, you know. So huge stuff. And this picture, there is 8 different ways here that we've identified where fish, a healthy ocean actually helps you to deal with climate change. And there are fish that their droppings actually loaded with CO2, and that drops into the bottom and gets stored for forever. You have whales, for example, do that, and so on and so forth. You have some habitats, some things like the corals and so on do their own absorption. So bony fish taking a lot of CO2 as part of the building of their shells, the calcium carbonate. So there are many mechanisms here that tells us that when we think of fish, we just don't think about the fish we just catch and eat, but also all the other ecosystem services it provides. And one of them is actually helping us with our climate crisis. I will be sharing, I'll make this available to Dodo and the others, so those of you interested can get this to really look at this more closely. Now, marine protection and biodiversity, economic and equity gains. This is something I push a lot when we did a paper in 2015. That's the one you see there in scientific reports. And in there, we looked at what happens if you close the whole high seas from fishing. You know, the way the world is, the world ocean is. We have a part of the ocean that is country waters, which is 200 nautical miles away from the country's coast is your waters, South Africa. Anything from the coast, whether you are on the west or east side or the southern part, from the coast to 200 nautical miles is South African waters. This is what the world agreed in 1982 with the UN Convention on Law of the Sea. Every country was given this right, but anything beyond that is the high seas, areas beyond national jurisdiction. And this is 2/3 of the ocean, actually. And this is basically free for all. And so in this paper, what we said is, it's so expensive to go out there and catch the fish. There's not a lot of fish we catch. We don't eat, it doesn't employ more people. How about if we close it? What are the benefits? And we saw that doing that will increase ocean biodiversity. It will actually improve the economics, and even more interestingly, it will improve the equity gains from the fish in the high seas. And I could take a whole hour to explain this, but essentially this picture captures that. So let's say this is your ocean, and I put the line there. This part you fish, that's on my right-hand side here, and this part you close it up, you protect it, you know. So you effectively protect it. And I took out the high seas. I just told you to get the background where this picture came from. That's why we have tunas, because there are those that go in and out a lot. And so if you look at this, you have your ocean area, you protect one side. With time, what you do is you give fish peace when they are in the protected area. So they flourish, they grow better, they become more. If they lay eggs in the high seas, that gets floating, the larvae comes, and when it's too dense there, they move into where you are allowed to fish, and you can fish them cheaply. You burn less carbon. It's just a beautiful concept. The more I think of it, the more I like it, and so we've been writing papers about it. Now, the biodiversity thing. So if you did this and you protect here, over time, this is what you see. Everything being equal, there will be more fish in the area you protect. So I call this the fish bank of the world. Make the high seas or your protected area can be seen as a fish bank. This is where you put some of your money or your stock or your investment, and then because you give them peace, they're free, they can go and get dense. And when they get dense enough, you know what animals do when it's too tight? You know this. You know, when you're in a room and it's too crowded, slowly you see one person leave, another leave. And fish do the same. Fish are like people, right? It's too crowded here, so they jump into your boat, right? It becomes cheaper. You don't have to go far. And so one, you have more biodiversity, everything being equal. When they get to some level, they'll jump over and you can catch them and make more money. So it's good for biodiversity. It's also good for economics. And why do I say it's good for equity? When you're thinking about the high seas, 7 countries, big fishing nations, we are talking about China, Korea, Spain, and so on. 7 of them take more than 80% of the value of the fish in the high seas today. 80%, and the high sea is supposed to be owned by all citizens of the world, right? Because it's our ocean, that is the part that is not allocated to any country. So everyone has a stake there. Only 7 countries take it. When you do disclosure, what happens is the fish will come into EEZs of big and small countries alike. So a country like Guinea-Bissau or Angola or Namibia or even South Africa will be able to catch the fish when they come in. So that's where the equity gains is actually more distributional value. In fact, when we did this, we calculated what economists call the Gini coefficient. And that just tells you how skewed the distribution of income is in a given country. So we calculated with the current situation where a few countries fish there and take all the benefits versus if you close it and the fish spread and many more coastal countries can benefit from. When we did that, we got a Gini coefficient of Sweden, which is one of the most closely where you have close distribution of income, to that of South Africa, for that matter. It just happened to be South Africa, where the distribution of income is one of the largest. So that's what the equity gains you can make out of this. So that is that. Now let's get to, because of all these benefits, the world came together through the Convention of Biodiversity on Biodiversity. The Aichi Targets advocated for 10% to be closed. This was reinforced by the Sustainable Development Goals 14.6.5, where the 10% was again emphasized. And the target is this end of this year. So the question is, how far are you, South Africa? So how far are you, the world? And so we did a paper on that, but quickly, these are the goals that the Aichi Targets and the SDGs set up. MPAs can have other important goals such as making fishing more sustainable, but that is not the same as biodiversity protection, because that's the goal of this Aichi target. They want to protect biodiversity, but that can lead to the spillover benefits I talked about. And so this is just quickly to tell you some of the reasons why we need protection, biodiversity, and more. And this is because if you leave us to our own devices, we overdo it. We always overdo it, some of us at least. Whenever human beings can do something, some of us do it, whether it's good or bad, short term or not, you do. So we need protection. And so that is the point being made here. And in this paper, what we did was actually to look at where the world is. We published this, I believe, in 2018. The years go so fast, right? And what we're seeing here, the world had declared at the time we did this, about what? Over 7%, over 7% have been declared, where governments have said we are going to protect. And 3.6% have actually been implemented. 1.6% designated, and proposed is 2.1. But if you look at how effective they are, only about 2% are strongly implemented, you know. So there's a long ways to go in that regard. South Africa, as far as I know, 5%. I don't know whether they're fully protected or it's just a declaration. So you have only 2.5 months to meet that 10%. And actually the world is already moving forward. So there's a lot of work to be done, and all the young people and the not so young people, there's much work to be done to achieve this goal. Not only to achieve the 2020 target, there's a movement now to get to 30% by 2030 as the new kind of CBD goal. And this is being worked out. And some countries have actually declared that they support this. Canada is one of them. And I think there was a big UN meeting and a number of countries have committed to this. I'm not sure South Africa has done that. So this another thing South Africa and Africa can actually do, right, to move forward in this way. Now, people will say, why should we do this? What are the economic values? Economics is powerful. Our governments, at least, they tell us economics is important. So we need to show the value. And there is so much. The insurance value of this, which I talked about when you get the shock, whether it's pandemic or whatever the consequences. I use pandemic as an example. So there's a huge insurance value. And we see a lot of recreational value. Palau has closed 80% of their fishing waters. 80%, allow only 20%, and only by locals, no international fishing. And the whole idea is to make it an attractive place for ecotourism and marine tourism and recreational fishing, and they are earning a lot out of that. I like to say sharks and whales are more valuable alive than dead. One shark, true shark watching can give you over $1 million in their lifetime. Whilst if you kill the shark and take the fin and sell it in China for $140 a bowl, and that's it. So think about that. The continent, Africa, can be a conservation continent, actually. Conservation with lots of values for people, real people, not just the 1% taking everything and running away with it. And these are the kind of things you can get. With fisheries, the short term, there will be some losses in certain cases, but in the long term, medium term, there's no question that this is beneficial because of the spillover and the protection you get from sharks when they come. Then there's option value. Don't forget the future generation. The ocean is not just for those of us alive now. It's a natural endowment, and we need to keep it going. And so that at the minimum, we shouldn't give future generations an ocean that is worse than what we received from those before us. So there is that value again. Climate resilience value, I mentioned that. Equity value, I mentioned that already. So in this big report we did, which was published this year by Waldron, was the lead from Oxford. And this is really a massive effort. I've never seen that kind of effort about marine protection or even about the marine at all. There were more than 100 scientists, economists who actually did this together. It's amazing, right? You should have seen the emails flying through all over the world for comments, for information, for data, for analysis. And the basic economic structure in the paper is what I just put on one slide for you. That is the whole economics in there. Actually, this is probably the whole of economics. The details are complicated and not easy, but this is the business, right? So for any policy, project, or program, you will want to assess to see the value that that project is likely to generate for society. And how do you do that? You do cost-benefit analysis. You do it very comprehensively. And the first equation here is you need to count the value that that project or that protected area will bring in through time. You just don't look at today and say, oh, the protection is not good. No. You look at through time and see the flow of benefits. And this is broadly, not just the fish you eat. You have to look at the carbon sequestration value. You have to look at the recreational value and all those. That's why it's complicated, even though it looks simple. So you need to find a way to count and measure this. And then, of course, you have to count the cost of implementing that project or program or the MPA. And that is also through time. You count the cost, and then you take the difference in each year and you do discounting and all that. It's more detailed, but this essentially tells you what this report did, not only for the ocean, but also for land. So this is very comprehensive. Actually, I like to call it what do we call it? The IPCC of the ocean, in a sense. Whenever you have more than 100 scientists working on one question like this, a lot of amazing stuff happens. So that is the gut of the report, which I think is already been made available to you, and you can read for details. So what did we find after doing all the work? These are three key things that we came up with. So achieving 30% protection globally by 2030 is affordable. What we found is that you just need only 0.16% of global GDP to be able to achieve this. This is peanuts. It's just so small. I think if you, whatever big public sector you take, we're spending a lot more than this, whether you're talking about defense or healthcare or education. So this is not much at all. When I give a talk in the US, I say one of the 1%ers can easily pay for this without becoming poor, right? And 30 by 30 is good investment. And I think for the continent, for South Africa and Africa, this is an important point to note, because we should care about every dollar, every rand we spend. We want it to work for people and to protect nature, because in the long run, that is the only thing that will protect Africa and Africans, right? And the economics is that this is good investment. You put in $1, you get $5 back if you count, at least actually, because all the benefits I showed you, not all of them we've been able to quantify. So this is good business. And number three, actually, there is a lot of public money and private money already in the system, but they are not used to help people and nature. So if we can just think through all the subsidies we give to oil and gas and we give to the fishing sector itself, that help to undermine and deplete the resources. If we can only think carefully and be clever at how we spend government funds, actually, there is more than enough money to do this job and lift change. I mean, the OECD estimates that 4.7 trillion is the amount of subsidies each year given by governments around the world to the oil and gas sector. And this is a sector that is generating CO2 like crazy, right? So talk about misuse of public funds. So there are resources in there, and I'm talking, these are global numbers, but they apply to South Africa and they apply to the continent. This is the kind of study we need to do more to localize it so people can really see. So the implication of this is actually protecting 30% of the ocean by 2030 is good. It's going to boost the economy. And that's the 1 to 5 thing. So it's affordable, it's good investment. All you need to do is just do it, right? Implement it and we get benefits. Now, how about financing? Financing, you know, something can be as good for you as it wants to be. If there's no financing, nothing is going to happen, you know, and this is crucial. So that's why financing is important. And I think this is a general message to everybody, but in particular, again, to the continent, to South Africa. Remember, please, the things we really care about, we have to put in the financing to get it done. We can sit and wait for somebody to do it for you. No. We can do it. I gave a talk at the African Development Bank, and I say, you know what, Africans, we are richer than we think. If you really, Masha, whatever little resources, and we use it carefully, and we put it where it gives us more value, next time we're going to grow and be richer. And so we are richer than we think is a mentality that we need to put in our heads, you know. And time is amazing. Once you start doing the right thing with your money, I tell you, it's just a matter of time and you will stop being poor. So we need to find the money to do the things that help people and help nature. If I helping nature, it's helping people, because without nature, people cannot do anything. You cannot, there's no place to hide without nature. So this is good. And what we find, this is a study we are currently doing, and it will be, I think this month we'll splash it all over. It's a report I'm doing together with colleagues for the high-level panel for sustainable ocean economy, which is led by the Norwegian Prime Minister. There are 14 heads of states of government, sitting ones, that endorse this, that support this, that created this, and they have scientists working to give them information to help make our oceans sustainable. And one of them is financing the ocean, which I'm one of the leads. It will soon come. You will have more information. But essentially, what we're seeing is that we are underfunding the ocean big time. We're underfunding. Remember, the ocean generates $1.5 trillion a year, according to the OECD. And they project this is going to double to $3 trillion. And we're just spending about 13 billion as far as we can see directly on managing the ocean, which is not right. In fact, I say that if we can just 5% of the oceans, of the value generated by the ocean, can use it to manage our ocean, that will be amazing already. So that's where we are with that. And this is a specific example for the Mediterranean countries, because this was calculated by other people. And they found that there's a gap of nearly $800 million in what is needed to really create marine protection in the Mediterranean that will really help make the ocean sustainable. So that's one example that I can tell you in the literature. Now, we need to increase financing. That is obvious, and there are, to think about this, we need to actually look at financing. Look here, people usually invest, private people invest to make money. So if it's 1 to 5, there will be people who will get it because it pays. Now, this is the overall for marine protection. But if you look at marine investment in general, there are investments that are like that they can compete in the market, and the private sector will generate that financing, and that's a good thing. Great. Then there are services that are valuable that generate private benefit, but they are not big enough to compete in the market. So the private sector will not do it. So we need public philanthropic support, individual support to get that done, because they are good for us as a whole, as a society. And then there are services that simply don't generate private benefit income. So they will not be touched by the private sector because they are not in there for charity. They're there to make profit. So there again, we need the public sector, we need philanthropy, we need individuals who care and can afford to help to chip in it. So we need a broad range of ways of funding the ocean and its protection. And we need long-term funding, because really a lot of the benefits, you have to be patient. We need patient capital, and there is a lot going on in this field that people are developing new ways to bring the private and public sector together so that we can do more medium long-term financing, which is needed. So you need the government. And for the government, there's a need to recognize that nature is a driver of economic growth. It is the base of economic growth, actually. I don't know why this is so difficult. Without nature, what do you have? Nothing, really. So we need to really put this in the minds of as many citizens of the world as possible. And then the subsidies I mentioned, this is a lot of it is public funding. It's your tax money. And we need to let our governments know what we don't want them to use our taxes for. You don't use my taxes to kill nature, because you're killing me, actually. And this message has to go through. And indigenous people and coastal people more generally, we need, because for coastal people, that is their livelihood. That is the ocean is the place they go to get their livelihood. And we need to have that into account and invest in that. And not only that, that's their livelihood, they also have really clever ways of living with nature that the so-called modern world has simply ignored. And so we need to learn from the real people who have lived and done this. And I could tell you what I said yesterday, where I gave a talk yesterday. Oh, it was an interview, actually. I think I sent a link to do. There's another one. I'll send that link also. And in there, the one here, the later one in there, we're talking about plastic pollution, and I told them that, when I was growing up in West Africa, we used to wrap a lot of our food in organic stuff like banana leaves, like corn leaves, and so on. And actually, they made the food delicious, right? Imagine food in plastic versus food in wrapped with banana leaves. The taste is even different. Then we have marketeers and people coming to tell us, oh, this is primitive, it's not modern, it's not cool. And then we left all this amazing stuff and went to plastic. It's now it's killing the ocean and our earth. And so I said, we need to look back and pick up the good things we dropped foolishly, I would say, and bring them back in. So this is and maybe the developed world has got something to learn from the so-called asshole countries, right? I made a joke about that yesterday, which was well received. So businesses have to step up, and there are many ways, and so should philanthropists and even individuals, right? In all our little capacities, whether it is voting or writing a letter to your member of parliament and telling her, look here, I care about the ocean because the ocean takes care of me. You cannot, if you don't take it as part of your political portfolio, you aren't gonna get my vote, right? Something like that. And we need to develop new financing mechanisms. And this is a nice example because actually it's from South Africa. There's a recent effort by the Development Bank of Southern Africa. They established a financing vehicle for climate finance, and the ocean is part of this. The goal is to generate $140+ million to support infrastructure projects and businesses that mitigate or adapt to climate change. So the facility provides risk mitigation where new technology is involved or the project and businesses are still in developmental phase. So this is a private funding institution that is creating a vehicle, a financial vehicle to try to bring in more finance. There's another example from Ghana where the stock market and the government are working together to deal with these services that do not generate enough private returns to make it attractive. So they can come together and develop some bonds, government bonds, to try to do this. So we have to think outside of the box also. Hey, I'm already there. But before I close, what I'm going to say is, marine protection, I find one special benefit that it will give to Africa that I think I should share with you before I end. And if you look at Africa, actually, Africa is a big island, or a big island plus many small islands, you know. And you just have to look at the global map, and that's we, and the ocean is all over. And we also know that illegal fishing is one of the big things that is messing up the ocean. And African waters are prone to this. And why? Because we don't have the resources and the technology to really monitor our waters effectively as we should. And so both from elsewhere, from China, sometimes from Europe, come in there. So one beautiful use of marine protection, I think, could be to actually protect X kilometers of African countries' waters. So I told you it's 200 nautical miles from your coast to 200 nautical miles. We could say, for example, let's protect from the end at the boundary of the high seas, we protect, say, X kilometers, nautical miles into African country waters. That will be no fishing zone for everybody, right? So we put a ban around the continent's waters, and that will serve as a kind of buffer against all these illegal boats. It will make it easier to pick up boats fishing illegally because they will have to get into the place. If you see any boat there, you know they are fishing illegally. If we combine that with clever ways of chipping in financing, and South Africa, Namibia, and Angola are good in the Benguela about this. We can contribute little monies, we can get technology, satellite technology is great these days, it's getting cheaper. And we'll be able to monitor and keep the people away from stealing African fish. So that will be wonderfully to protect us, generate more values for locals and the local economy. And this is where I will end. Thank you so much for your attention, and thanks to Wild Oceans for convening this.
Sure. Thank you, Professor Rashid Sumaila. That was a lot. You know, I think you've taught us a lot today. And as much as you had said when you started that we are familiar with what you said, but I think you've fed us a lot of new information that we're going to take with us. You know, I think I like the part where you said it is within our rights to even ask the government, what are you doing with my tax money? Are you killing nature? In that way, you are killing myself. But I think maybe if we had to share this with everybody out there, they will see the importance of protecting nature. And there's also the other line that I liked from you the most was when you were talking about the amount of money that is there for which is for public fund, which are public funds, and how it's being misused. And I think it is very important that we here together find ways to sort of like push our government, push our countries to make sure that these funds are channeled into a good cause to protect our environment. And by so doing, we will be protecting ourselves as well. I was actually gonna say we haven't had any questions. The only thing that I'm seeing here is a brilliant presentation. Thank you. This is from Heather. And Armstrong Gumbi just said, always captive, Professor. Great presentation. And there is Enzo. Enzo, you're my favorite, by the way. He says, thanks for sharing this facet of MPAs. So Professor, thank you so much for your time. And like I said, it's amazing that we don't have any questions. I guess you've covered all corners of what people were willing to hear today. And do I continue reading? I can see here, I'm so blown away. Wow.
I'm so blown away by you guys, even with other questions, right? I mean, it's fantastic. I just get animated when I get to talk with young people all over the world, and in particular in Africa, because you know what? Charity begins at home.
So at home, absolutely.
Important for me. And we got to move our continent. We have to move Africa. And I tell Europeans and Americans, without Africa in a good place, the world cannot be in a good place. It is in your interest as well as those of Africans to get the continent growing. And so I thank you for giving me the platform. And I know this is not the last time. Thank you.
Oh, we hope so too. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And I think now you can have time to plan your day accordingly, since you've grabbed it so early at 8. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's like we can't thank you enough. I think I'm just gonna remind everyone that we will send you guys the recording, so you don't have to worry for those who've missed it, or maybe you want to share it with your family members. Please do. We will be sending it on Monday, and it doesn't look like we have any questions. So there's nothing, unless people decide to type any. You're more than welcome to, and I will forward them to the professor. Guys, just a quick reminder. Maybe you might have seen on the chat, I have sent you the link of Professor Sumaila's interview with CBC, which was yesterday. So if you look on the chat box, it is there. And just a reminder about our last webinar, which will be next week, Thursday, which is on the 15th of October. And that will start at 4, not at 5. This time it will start at 4. This one is about where creativity and imagination meet, exploring through the lens. So we will be exploring our beautiful wonders of the oceans through underwater photography and videos, which will give us a glimpse into an alternative marine-related careers. So as you can see, this time we're not having someone who will be doing a presentation, but we're making it very informal and very interactive, because it will consist of the panelist and also the facilitator. So please make sure that you join us next week, and I promise it's going to be more fun. And that is it, guys. Thank you so much for joining us.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dudu. Thanks, Professor Sumaila.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you all, and all the best. Bye.
Dudu, if I can just have a quick chat to you when.
Of course. Yeah.
Thanks.
I think someone is trying to connect.
Yeah, I think Debbie's had a problem the whole session. I did send her a message right at the beginning. Can don't know if she actually, I'm just going to remove. I don't know if she's actually even there.
Who's it now?
Debbie. Because she's literally been connecting to audio since she came on, and she was one of the early ones, and I sent her a message, but I got no response from her, so.
Sure. Cool.
Bye, Yogashin.
Are you expecting Dawn to join us?
No, I don't know who Dawn is.
Yeah. Shame we done now.
I will send her a message. Dawn obviously got the times wrong again because she's from Oceania, Canada.
But I had someone called
Era.
Yeah, I had someone. She is with Professor, hey, from the same side. So I had a guy called Alexandra. I think it's a guy. I sent him in the link to join us, but he didn't. So shame. So I've just removed him. Her.
Oh, I was sending a message to let her know that it's just finished, because I think what's happened, she's in the UK, so she was joining at 5 o'clock UK time.
I am bummed. Sorry about that. And we don't even have an email either.
Dawn. No, you do have Dawn.